So back when we planned out the schedule this spring for this show, All In, we thought we would be doing a lot more live audience shows, which we really liked. Certain energy that comes from those shows that's different than the other shows we do. We even talked about expanding them from Friday to maybe multiple nights a week, and we would do it throughout the election season. That, of course, has not happened, like so many things. The folks who depend on those audiences night after night in this business, particularly the late night talk show hosts, have had to radically adjust their format in just a matter of weeks. Seth Meyers has been hosting late night from the attic of his house, a backdrop that has made for some really awesome television.
As you may know, there's been some speculation online about what's behind my tiny little door back there, and I just want to put one of the rumors to rest. I do not keep my children in there so they won't interrupt me while I'm filming. For one, that would be very cruel, and two, it's a shallow closet. You would never fit both of them.
Wait, who? Oh, who let you out? Oh, not you too! They're loose! The boys are loose! This has been a close... Oh, you're going back?
And Seth Meyers joins me now from that same attic with maybe the boys in there. I'm hoping they make a guest appearance, Seth.
Now I'm really worried that your audience will just assume that they are going to come out of there, but I have to assure everybody watching that they are fast asleep. Fast asleep, right below this room. So keep it down.
So this has been such a bizarre time for everyone. Obviously, you and I are extremely, extremely lucky to be able to do what we do and have the situations that we have when you think about grocery workers and healthcare workers. But everyone, no matter what they're doing, is adjusting in ways. And I keep thinking about what you do, which is, having been on your show a bunch, feels so, the audience and the energy of that room feels so connected to what you're doing, what it has been like to not have that, particularly because that same feeling of like playing rock venues for people I know that are in bands or in theater, like there's a lot of people that work in a world that depends on being around a lot of other people in communion that don't have that right now.
Yeah, and certainly one of the most exciting things about doing comedy for a living is getting that instant feedback from an audience. And we are so grateful that, every seat is filled when we do our show. And it has for sure been one of the hardest parts of this. But, as you said, it's not harder than what most people are going through, so we count ourselves lucky. But it has, of the many interesting experiences that we're going through, doing it without an audience is right up at the top of that list.
It is also just a strange thing right now, the kind of Groundhog Day quality I find of how easy it is to lose track of like where you are in the week and how similar each day is to the other day. Are you finding that?
Very much so. We are on a scheduled hiatus this week, and I have no sense at all of what day it is without having the structure of the show, which has been helpful. Because then I have to talk to other people. Whereas on a hiatus week, it's just two children who couldn't tell you the day of the week if you paid them.
How is the family doing? We obviously, one of the things that I've found a silver lining in all this, and I've had two of my big kids on the show, and when it was my son David's birthday, is that, and again, I've been talking to people who have these mixed experiences of this whole thing, the fear of illness, family members who are getting sick, the disruption, the economic anxiety, but also some sense of solidarity or closeness with family. And I've been really, that part of it, being around my family much more, you and I both have jobs that make that hard, has been an incredible boon.
Yeah, the first month it was incredible just being able to, have dinner with my kids every night. The first month. It's now, the novelty is worn off. No, they're fantastic. I will say, they appeared in one episode of the show, and I had this heartbreaking moment of walking down and watching my 4-year-old FaceTime with his grandparents, so matter of fact, saying, just while he was chewing, I was on Daddy's show tonight. I hid in the closet and then ran out. I'm like, oh no, I have planted the seed.
There's also something about like watching your kids deal with this that's very intense and tender. I'm finding like my watching them have play dates with their friends. on their, on a screen, with headphones and wondering what this is doing to them as children. Like, what impression is this making? How formative is this moment going to be for them as they go throughout their life? This moment where they had to be worried about their sickness and they couldn't hug their friends.
Well, I think we talked about this a little bit. I think your children, it's certainly going to have a bigger impact. Like for mine, they're 2 and 4. I don't think they can really wrap their heads around the negative aspects of this. Ultimately, I think it will help them wash their hands more, but ultimately it will be crazy 10, 20 years from now to talk back with them about this. And I imagine it will mostly be like, oh yeah, that was the time where we just went on more, walks.
Right. Family walks. I've also felt, one thing that's been strange about this moment, you have been, obviously you do a lot of political satire on the show, and have, a lot of things that people worried about the president, which at other moments were sort of like humorously trivial, like the time that he sharpied the hurricane. Like all of that stuff, all the character traits about him that are so satirizable and sort of can be enraging, but also humorously trivial in that context, now are all present in the midst of like an ongoing national nightmare.
Yeah, it was always stunning to me that people ever thought he would only lie about small stuff. I think that it was shocking that he would lie about small stuff, and almost a full guarantee that he would lie about bigger stuff if the truth of those bigger things would make him look bad. So, we were just constantly watching dress rehearsal for what is now this terrifying show.
Wait, the terrifying what?
This terrifying show now of, these lies on full display, right, when it really matters.
Yeah, that is the thing I keep thinking about. I keep thinking back to like the feeling of, oh God, here we go over the roller coaster on election night 2016, where we have done this thing that's never happened in the history of the country before, which is elect a person to be president who has no prior government or military experience. Literally never happened. We're going to run this experiment with the whole country as the variable group. There's no control. And now here we are. And there's a kind of surreality of pinching yourself that I find myself constantly doing.
Yeah. And that is also, doing the content that we do every night where you think it will move on and be about different things, but you get stuck in this, mud, for a lack of a better term, of it's impossible to move on because it is the same every day in that, there are new things he's, lying about, but he does them with an incredible consistency that you don't want to just move on because you're tired of talking about it, because it's still important.
Right. And then you start to feel like you're trapped in a content Groundhog Day. And yet the reality, like the reality and the truth are still the reality and the truth and still need to be said on Tuesday as they did on Monday.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, if you told me in 2016 when he won, this means in like 3 years you're going to be doing the show in an attic, I would have thought, yeah, you're probably right. I just didn't realize it would be because of this.
Yes, there'd be some reason that I would be doing it from an attic.
Yeah, but it seems like this is a domino that would lead to that.
You can catch Late Night with Seth Meyers, which will be back live next week, weeknights, NBC, 12:35 Eastern a.m. Seth, man, thank you so much for making time. Enjoy the attic.
All right, be well, guys.